The 25th Hour Radio Show. I want to thank everyone for tuning in to the 25th Hour Radio Show today. On the phone, I have the president of the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum, Jeff Idelson. Jeff, thanks for joining me on the show today, especially being that it's Major League Baseball opening day. It makes it extra special. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Rob. There's nothing better than opening day. Every team's in first place. Everybody's batting 1,000. Doesn't get any better.
Jeff, do you see it almost as destiny, the way things worked out the way they did? I mean, you've been involved with baseball in some form or fashion ever since you were a kid, right?
Oh, yeah. No, I've been very fortunate. I grew up in the Boston area, Rob, and was very fortunate to have parents who loved the game of baseball. My dad actually was a Stan Musial fan because he was left-handed, and he liked Ted Williams, but he loved Stan for some reason. And I can understand why now, but they got me involved early. I was lucky enough to become a vendor at Fenway Park when I was in high school and junior high school, and now I'm in my 30th year of working in the sport as a profession. So I'm very fortunate, and I adore the game.
You know, I'm curious, when you're a vendor who works at a major league park, do you or did you have access to meeting the players? I mean, did you have one of those starstruck moments when you got to personally interact with one of your heroes?
Never with my heroes. I mean, when you're a vendor, you're pretty much on the outside. But I did have one opportunity, a couple of opportunities, but the one that rings true is I remember vending ice cream in the bleachers at Fenway, and remember being down by the bullpens at Fenway Park. The bullpens are part of the bleachers. You can almost talk into them, and we had a right-handed relief pitcher who was our closer at the time before the term closer became popular, named Bill Campbell, and he had a mustache and curly hair. He pitched Twins. And Bill came up. I was down there one day, and Bill asked me, he goes, "Do you have any ice cream in there?" I said, "Of course." He said, "Could I have one?" I said, "Well, do you have any money?" He said, "No, I'm in the bullpen. I'm getting ready. I'm here to pitch." And I said, "Well, I have to pay for this." He said, "How about if I trade you a couple of baseballs?" So a couple times over a couple of years, Bill Campbell, not often, but I'd go out there and say, "Bill, you want an ice cream today?" And he wasn't one that ate a lot in the bullpen, but he had a craving once in a while, and we hooked each other up.
Well, that's cool. You know, how much of an influence was those years in making your decision on what you wanted your degree to be in college? I mean, did you always know that you wanted to return to the ballpark in some form or fashion after graduation?
Yeah, it's funny. You start to think about what you like and don't like as you're going through your college years, and it became evident to me that I was more comfortable being in a ballpark than I was, sitting behind a desk. And I kind of just felt comfortable being there, like I said, as a vendor. And I remember my senior year of college, I went to a small Division III school, Connecticut College in New London, Connecticut, and I was majoring in international economics. And my guidance counselor said, "Well, what do you want to do with your life?" And I said, "I don't know." She said, "Well, what do you like?" I said, "Baseball." She said, "Well, apply for a gig in baseball." So I wrote to the Red Sox, and I got lucky enough to get an internship that started 5 days after I graduated, and I've never looked back.
Now, what exactly was your role with the Red Sox organization while you were with them?
I started in their public relations department, and I started in 1986, which was the year that they went to the World Series and unfortunately lost to the Mets. But I got a tremendous amount of experience working with them at that point. I did a lot of writing for their game programs over the following 2 years. I produced their home radio broadcasts for a couple of years and worked in marketing and just sort of kept my foot in the door until I was able to get something full-time, and that actually came with a team I hated. I grew up hating, the Yankees, believe it or not. But I went to work for the Yankees after the 1988 season and spent 5 years as their head of PR.
Yeah, it must have been tough on you to actually pursue something different outside of the Red Sox organization, and being how emotionally connected you were to the team.
Well, yeah, and if you think about it, if you're a Cardinal fan, the last thing you want to do is work for the Cubs. But if the Cubs offered you a full-time gig, then you're probably going to go. And you know what I realized is that I love the sport. I love the game more than any one team, and it didn't matter who I was going to work for as long as I had a job in the industry.
So give my listeners a little insight on how you became the president of the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. You had to work your way up the ranks there as well, right?
I did, and I came to Cooperstown in 1994 during the strike, and figured, I'd be there for a year or so just to get my life slowed down. For those who haven't made the trip to Cooperstown, it's a beautiful village in central New York, about 4 hours north of Manhattan. But it's small and quiet. We have 1,800 year-round residents, one stoplight, and it's a quiet place. But 2 kids and 22 years later, I'm still here because I absolutely love what the museum stands for, and I love our staff. And I was hired as their PR director, and just sort of kept making my way up, not by choice. It just sort of happened, and never aspired to be the president of the museum. But when they asked me in 2008, I was stunned and floored and had to think about it to make sure it was real. And then I guess 8 years later, I'm realizing it's very real, and I enjoy it very much.
Well, Jeff, for those out there who've never had a chance to visit the Hall of Fame and Museum in Cooperstown, coming from the mouth of the president himself, how would you describe it to someone, especially to a baseball fan who's never had a chance to visit?
Well, the way I would describe it is that you probably think about the Hall of Fame and Museum, and you think about the fact that it's a history museum, and you think, boy, I'm going to go back and see all this old history. But what ends up happening is you take a step back into your own childhood, because you realize that if you're a baseball fan and you adore the game, coming to Cooperstown is all about reliving what you've already lived, and all the artifacts from your favorite players, your favorite teams, the dynasties, whether they be the Cardinals or another team, are front and center there. And it's truly a trip down memory lane, and it's uncanny how many people come in thinking, well, I'm not really going to see things I know, but invariably you find something that relates directly to you.
Now, even though you're the president and oversee operations, you don't have any say-so on actually who makes it in and who doesn't, right?
No, the Hall of Fame just stands prepared to honor those whom the baseball writers elect. So the guys like Rick Hummel down in St. Louis, and Derek Gould that write for the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and talented writers such as them. There's about 500 of them who vote, and whomever they vote into the Hall of Fame are the ones who we honor through induction.
Now, this might be a dumb question. I don't know, but do you ever have people approach you who think you do have the authority to have a player inducted into the Hall, and you have to basically explain, like, hey, man, I just work there?
Yeah, you know where it comes. You know where that happens is when guys are incredibly passionate about someone who hasn't gotten in, and they're like, why hasn't this player gotten in? Why hasn't my favorite made it to the Hall of Fame? And after you explain to people that it's difficult to earn election, and when you explain that only 1%, 1 out of 100 of those who wear a major league uniform make it there, it helps explain that why maybe that their favorite candidate isn't there. But it comes to a point where people are saying, well, you've done this, and can't we just get them in? And you have to say, look, it wouldn't be an election of it then. It would just be somebody putting somebody in. So yeah, people still seem stunned, and I think once they realize only 1 out of 100 make it to the Hall of Fame, they realize it is difficult.
Well, being that it's Sunday and it's also MLB opening day, I'm not going to keep you on the phone too long, but I am curious, what's a day like for you on opening day? Is it just like any other baseball fan out there, or do you have special obligations you have to fulfill, other than giving interviews?
Yeah, some years I'm at a ballpark. I'm in Cooperstown today because I'm headed to Kansas City tomorrow for their Tuesday game. They're getting the Royals will get the World Series rings on Tuesday, and the Hall of Fame is always presented with a ring. So if you come to Cooperstown, you'll see World Series rings going all the way back to the first in 1922. So generally, I'm in a ballpark. Today, I'm in Cooperstown, where I'm just enjoying watching the Pirates and Cardinals and the other two games a little later today on television. And
real quick, is there anything special coming up? Any promotion you want to get out there that concerns the Hall that fans might be interested in?
Well, just the museum is open the year round. We have a lot on the calendar every month of activities, sleepovers in the museum, special events, Hall of Famers coming. We have a brand new exhibit we just opened on the most recent 50 years of baseball history. So the great Cardinal dynasty teams from the 2000s are in there. And then, of course, induction weekend is the weekend of July 24th. If you've never been to that, that's a lot of fun. And this year you got Ken Griffey Jr. and Mike Piazza getting the nod. And down the line, if you've not been to an induction, that's certainly fun to see your favorite player get the final call and a plaque on the stage in Cooperstown.
And, of course, you can get more information on the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum at baseballhall.org. Jeff, do you have any social media spots where people can follow you specifically?
Sure. The Hall of Fame is in Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook under Baseball Hall of Fame, and I'm there at Hall of Fame Prez, Prez, and I love to put out social media. I just put out a huge blog a couple hours ago on the trip I took to Cuba last week with Major League Baseball. So if that's of interest to you, if you go to either Jeff Idelson on Facebook or at Hall of Fame Prez on Twitter, you can read the blog.
Well, Jeff, like I mentioned earlier, thanks for taking time out to spend a few minutes with me on the show. It's been my pleasure, sir.
Pleasure's been mine. Anytime, and have a great afternoon and have a great baseball season.
25th Hour Radio Show.